Welcome back to another episode of Techsheck, where we continue to unpack and unfold the Pakistan tech startup ecosystem. Today, we thought we'd change it up a little, and I'd like to welcome Mr. Umer Khan, the current CIO of SpaceX, to Techsheck. Umer, welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum, Farooq. So excited to be here.
Well, super happy to have you here. And Umer, you and I have been talking about this for a while, so it's good that we were able to finally bring it to fruition. You do hold a very unique spot in working for probably one of the most famous and interesting business tycoons of our era. So let's jump right in Techsheck style. First, tell us a little bit about you and your journey and how you got to SpaceX.
If you look at my career, it might seem linear, and it might seem like I might have had a plan or some sort of trajectory that I wanted to be on, but I'm just not an ambitious person like that. Like, career is not something I've aspired for. It's not something I planned. It just more happened to me. I just continue to do things that I'm good at, right? Like, I'm a technical nerd. I like to get into bits and bytes. I still code. I still do design reviews with my team. So I just kind of focused on my skill set, did what I think I do best, and worked really long hours and sacrificed some sleep in the process, and somehow ended up here, right? Now, in the early days, when I was transitioning from engineer into a lead and then a lead to a manager, I actually asked for those promotions. So I went into my boss and I said, hey, look, I don't know about this management thing. I'm very early in my career, just an engineer, but I want to try it out. I want to see if it's for me. So I went in and I asked, because I wanted to try and see if it was really for me. And in trying it for the first time, I enjoyed it. And then I asked for the second promotion as well, which was only a few months later, when there was a group where 2 managers had been fired and 1 had been demoted. And this group was a total mess. The team was a mess. The technology was a mess. They were behind by years. And I said, you know what? If I can get this team in order, then maybe I'm a really good manager and this is for me. And if I can't, then maybe I should go back to being like a really competent engineer. So those were the 2 times I asked for a promotion. Everything else, there was like 7 promotions in 7 years at Broadcom. I was there 13 years and continued to grow from an engineer all the way to a senior director, and then moved from there to SpaceX. All of those promotions were kind of my boss coming in saying, I want to tap you on the shoulder. Can you do something different for me? It's like, really, I was so comfortable where I was at, enjoying my time with my family, enjoying my sleep. I was like, no, I need you to do something else for me. So I can't say I've had a very conscious career path. It's more like just do what I can do.
No, that's fantastic. Well, it's a pretty cool story, and I know you and I have shared a little bit of this offline. What was the actual impetus to SpaceX? You know, what brought you there?
Like I said, I worked for Broadcom for 13 years. And in those 13 years, I had many positions. The company went from $1 billion to 12 billion, from less than 2,000 employees to 15,000. So that was a lot of growth. We acquired more than 40 companies. I was responsible for integrating all of them. It was just really fun. Had an absolute blast working there. Great company, great growth story. Professionally, personally, I learned a lot. But what happened was, in the last few years, it started becoming a little more bureaucratic, a lot more paperwork, things are slower, it's not as cool anymore. So I was out looking for something different. And along with all these Fortune 500 standard, hey, can you be a VP of IT over here? There was this little company called SpaceX. And Elon wasn't as well known, but I did some research and found that he has done some things a little bit differently. And he's either really smart or really lucky. And I wanted to find out which it was. So like, okay, if he's lucky, great, I'll join for a year or 2, then I'll find somewhere else to go. If he's really smart, maybe I can learn something from him. And rockets are cool and space is fun. So why not, right? So that's how I came to SpaceX. It was a lateral move, smaller team, 40% less compensation, commute was way longer. Everything was kind of wrong, but I wanted to go learn from this guy.
That's awesome. Well, look where you are today.
Alhamdulillah.
So moving along, and I think you started touching on that a little bit. And I think there's a lot of folks out in our audience who are probably really curious, you know, and you share what you can comfortably. What's it like working for someone like Elon? You know, what are some things you've learned? What are things that you find unusual or interesting?
I think this is supposed to be a short podcast, not a full day thing, but let me see if
We'll
I can summarize,
encapsulate it.
right?
We'll
So a lot of,
encapsulate it. Top three.
right. So a lot of people don't understand Elon because they see Twitter Elon. And so
Yeah.
they see this very different personality than the person I've interacted with for the last 9 years, right? So Elon is like 98%, from my perspective, and having worked with him so closely, 98% genius, 2% a little child. He's like a very young, immature kind of child inside. And on Twitter, what you see 90% of the time is that 2% child personality. And at work, what you see 98% of the time is the genius personality. Not that he's not a child 2%, but he's 98% genius, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's like, look, he succeeded at PayPal. He succeeded. He was CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. So when I joined, I was like, let's see what I can learn from him, right? Because before him, electric vehicles were never cool. They couldn't be fast and cool and sexy and have a low cost of ownership all at the same time. And rockets were things that governments launched. So anyway, I'm digressing a little bit, but he's just at work. He's a teacher. He's a coach. He explains things. So when I go in with a problem, and I might go in with, here's 3 solutions that I'm looking at, he'll end up coaching me on, hey, Umer, look, I understand what you're proposing, but your solution doesn't scale. And I'm scratching my head. And he continues, he goes, when we're flying hundreds of flights a year, this will not scale. And he explains it, right? And I remember this is like an early conversation. I'm thinking, we fly 3 times a year. Maybe next year we'll have 6 flights. What is he talking about? This hundreds of flights. This year we flew 52 flights, but that's just how he thinks. He thinks ahead. And so for him, how do we build solutions that are simple, that are scalable? So I'll give you some examples, right? Like practical things. What have I learned from him? So one of the things I've learned is first principles thinking. Now he talks about this a lot, right? And people try to copy it. What does first principles thinking really mean? Does it mean you employ physics? Yes, in a way. So what you do is you realize the only thing you're constrained by is the laws of science. And beyond that, don't put any artificial constraints. Don't say, well, Google does it this way. Well, GE does it this way. We don't care how anyone else does it. Let's start from scratch. So an example of this at SpaceX would be like the Magic Wand report. It's a report that we run on all of our products. And we say, if you could take, let's say it's a rocket fairing, right? The thing that encloses the satellite when you're flying the rocket.
Right.
Rocket fairings were very expensive to make. So Elon said, let's run the Magic Wand report. What that means is you take all of the elements, all of the matter, the raw materials that it takes to make the fairing, and you take the cost of that. And that's the denominator. And then in the numerator, you say, what is the cost at the end of the fairing that we've made, including employee expense, indirect cost, all of that, right? So now you're saying that the fairing at the end cost me this much, but the raw materials cost me this much. Because if I could take a magic wand and just wave it on the materials, it would become a fairing. It would transform itself into a fairing. Right. If that ratio is as close to 1 as possible, you've achieved success. If that ratio is looking like 5, 10, 20, sometimes 100, companies don't realize this, you probably have opportunity for optimization because there's a better way to do this. So when Elon gives us budget cuts, he doesn't say, cut 10%. We all know how to cut 10% out of our budget, just do everything like a little bit less. But he says, cut 90%, right? So if you're rolling a rocket from the hangar to the launch pad, this used to take 24 hours. And he said, it needs to take 1 hour. Now, did we get to 1 hour? No, we got to 4. But 4 is how much better than 24, right? Most companies would be like, let's aspire to get to 20. Let's aspire to get to 18. And he's like, no, let's get to 1. And that really makes a difference. So it's a combination of this first principles thinking and aspire for these seemingly impossible things. These are a couple of things I've learned from him. Another example would be like we were talking about, I think Elon and I were talking about the delay between Hawthorne and Texas on packets as they go. Packets carry our rocket telemetry. It's like, why is there a delay? And the answer I had to give him is that, Elon, look, firstly, there's the speed of light, right? Then on top of that, light goes through a fiber, which bounces like this. He knows physics very well, right? He's a physics major. So there's a refractive index of fiber, which means that the packets can only go 0.7 the speed of light. And then this fiber doesn't follow a bird's eye view. It goes along train tracks, right? So when I explain all that to him, it's like, okay, the fiber follows the train tracks, refractive index of fiber, speed of light itself is limited. It's like, okay, I get it. That makes sense, right? Those are the types of answers that fly at SpaceX, not the, well, we're doing this because someone else does it this way. We're doing this because the law says we have to do it. It's like, go change the law, right? That would be his answer.
Very cool. No, it's very interesting, and that's a unique perspective that a lot of people don't get to hear about. So we really appreciate you sharing that, and I really hope this benefits some of the folks in our audience because, given the situation, Elon is now, whatever people think about what he does and how he does it, he gets a lot of attention. So, and he's created a lot of success. So there's always things to be learned from that.
Yeah.
So, as you know, Umer, we try not to drag things out too much in Techsheck. I know I could probably keep you here for another 4 hours talking about this, and we could probably learn a lot. But we're coming down to our wire here. And the last question I have for you, and I know you have a very unique background of having grown up, in Pakistan and in the US. And something I think I'd like you to share is some advice that you'd give young people, especially in the Pakistan environment, who are trying to improve and grow themselves. You've definitely achieved that, but what are some things you would recommend are the best way forward?
The advice I keep giving people is, number one, specialize in things. I think this is very common. We understand this nowadays. No longer are we living in a time where you can be just a generalist and a master of nothing. You have to specialize. And it's one of the approaches I took was very early in my career. And I think this helped a lot was I went and I specialized in a technology area. And I became a Unix admin. I became really deep in that. And I got all the certifications. I worked hard on it, did a lot of practice, used it at my job. And then I said, let me move on and try something else. And then I did some networking. And after that, then I moved on to some development. And so by getting that specialization, and by the way, it's not like, hey, learn all these things. It's learn these things. I spent years on one topic and then years on another one, years on a third one. Because if you can specialize in one thing, that's fantastic. If you can somehow specialize in two or three, that's even better. And if you can specialize in two or three and gain an understanding of the whole system, be a systems-oriented person. By the way, I'm speaking technically, but you can apply this to a business. So you can specialize in finance, you can specialize in accounting, and those are different fields. You can specialize in tax. But now that you have a whole view, if you can see the end-to-end picture and follow the money as it goes from quote to cash, right? Follow the money as it goes from hire to fire, whatever it might be. Really know the end-to-end system and then specialize, I think you'll be very successful.
Yeah, very solid advice, and much appreciated. I first of all,
I'll add one more, and this has been very helpful for my career personally.
Sure, absolutely.
Wayne Gretzky said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." And I talked about how I only asked for 2 promotions, but I've definitely asked for a lot of other things.
Right.
So, for example, and many people don't know this, when I worked at Broadcom, I was the only employee ever to get Broadcom to pay for my MBA. That was $200,000 that they paid for. And all I did was ask. Because if I had not asked, the policy was they pay $5,000, right? And I asked, and the CEO said yes. So always ask, because what's the worst that's going to happen, right? You're going to get denied. But it's something I practice every day, is just keep asking for things. And I'm so surprised at the things I get that I absolutely don't deserve.
No, that's fantastic. Some great learnings that you've shared with us here today. First of all, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show, Umer. This has been a long time coming, and we really appreciate having you here.
My pleasure.
And to our audience, as you can see, continuing to try to highlight what's good in Pakistan and products of Pakistan. And very proud to say that I have Umer as a friend and a mentor who works for a very incredible man, whatever it may be. And with that, please continue to like, share, and subscribe. We need your following. We need your inputs. And I bid you all Allah Hafiz.